It's again Saturday. I think it's the 14th of April. Yesterday was the 30th, Friday. Yes. And I should be talking about the chambers and maybe some other things. Yes. And chambers and things. On the whole, I think chambers is rather simple film. It doesn't need any complicated technical stuff like accidents or fire or no stunts, nothing like that. The thing is, of course, that it's that the structure of the film is rather complicated, because it's not just from point A to point B with a linear plot. No. Chambers has two time layers, today and the 80s. Two time layers, yes, and partly the events happen in the same in the same house, in two flats, both in 80s and today. But then there are other places, other towns, other geographical sites, and other flats, and the streets and the restaurants. And on the whole, there are quite many different locations. Yes. And then there are also different seasons. There's the summer and autumn and winter. And because all these seasons have a specific meaning, I want the film to happen in a longer period of time. In the 80s. Today it happens in quite a narrow space, but in the 80s, the things that happen when such a violence that makes somebody to kill another human being is developing inside. It's not a quick process. It's a slow process, and even now, even if we have some years in the 80s during which this happens, it's rather rapid. The roots are still further in the past, and these seasons mark the time passing, and it's very important that the time does pass. You can make a film about very quick development of violence. But then you just assume that it is the short space of time in the end of long development. The roots are always deeper. It's not the final act. And because Chambers is a kind of layered film in its structure, I think these changes of seasons fit very well in this structure. They kind of make it more compact, give it logical continuum. Not only people, not only what happens, but also the time that piles on. Inevitably the things. Yes. And on the other hand, the seasons and the characteristic weathers like snowfall, when Oona and Paavo are walking and dreaming, and the snow is softly falling on them from the night sky. It's a very dreamlike skin, and that's how I want it to be. It's the fairyland of winter, in a way. Yes, it's the way like the past holds its grip on Paavo's mind. It's the fairyland of the past, the fairyland of the winter, the soft snow that makes everything cold, icy, white, dead. It also, the grip of the past kills Paavo. He's not able to get rid of it. Yes, and that's why the skin where they walk in the falling snow, when it's snowing, that's why it's so important. It's his soulscape. Yes, and it's yeah, okay, yeah. And it's the same when Oona and Jussi move to this town. It's early summer, late spring. Everything's very clean, green, not dusty green as in the summertime, but clean and bright green, and everything has the joyous laughter and innocence of spring. The friendship of Bambi's and Oona's starts and develops, and then it turns to summer, and Oona meets Marcus, and they fall in love at the first sight, and their passion develops during that summer and the autumn, and then it kind of gets twisted and cools down with the Paavo's death and the next spring. And then there's the desperate attempt during the second summer to get it working again, kind of. Oona has, in a way, Oona has made her decision already, and there's nothing to add. But Marcus is quite desperate, and then it comes the autumn again. Oona is ready to leave this phase of her life, ready to move on, and but the grip of this passion to this man, she knows him pretty well. She knows his weaknesses, and she knows also how delicate and tender he is in a way, but she doesn't want to be his educator, his tutor, his mother. She wanted to be his woman, his lover, but not to bear the burden. Otherwise, she has her son, and the son is more meaningful, more on her responsibility than the other man, the man who brought her joy, but not enough anything else. Somehow you assume that people would bear their own responsibility and not put it all on one person's shoulders. If Oona and Marcus would have continued their affair, it would have been on Oona's shoulders. Both Jussi and Marcus. Marcus is a boy, he's a kid still. He's not a man, he's not able to carry the burden of that kind of life. And so there's this last night when they are walking both in the dark. Marcus is waiting, and Oona makes her mistake and goes to him and expects him to be as he has always been, but he's not. He's also made his decision, and so on the other hand, then there are the Emma and Jussi today, and they're quite different. The world today is different from the world it was in the 80s, in the beginning of 80s. And Emma and Jussi both are much more nuanced than Oona and Marcus. They don't make so big decisions. They take small steps and explore much more. Yes, it's rather important that you don't decide bang, like, you know. It's like when there's some years ago I planted a little oak on the yard. I found it had been maybe some dog or somebody had kicked it, so it was out of the roots were not in the ground, and it was dying, and I had it in my handbag for a few days. I forgot it, and then I remembered it, and I planted it on the yard. It's just a small oak, and surprise, surprise, it was still alive the next summer, and the next summer, and we shall see again now if it's still alive or not. And it grows very slowly. A tree always grows slowly from a little tiny seed. It grows and grows and grows. And for example, oak, it's usually a thick stem and branches up there, and some parts of it may die someday and rot away. But if there's something in the stem that's still alive, it keeps growing, and nothing happens quickly. It's very slow, very intricate, very small cells growing, and an old oak can quite easily be 500 years old, 1,000 years, 1,500 years old. But if somebody comes when it's 20 years old and hugs it down with an axe, so it's gone. That's what I mean with small steps and how you build up things little by little. Nothing happens like a flash. No. And it shouldn't. There's time layers. There are persons that exist in the first 80s, in the beginning of 80s, and again today, like Bambi. Jussi is 5 years old in the 80s, so he's a young man now. So that's not a problem because the difference is so great. But then there's Bambi. She's about 30 in the 80s and about 60 now today. And that's quite a big difference. And then there's William, who is a young man, 25 then, and 55. He's a bit younger than Bambi. And that's they are the ones. William has a rather small part in the beginning of 80s, so he might even be played with by a different actor now. But Bambi is one of the main characters that's present most of the time, and a lot, and she's a very specific kind of a person, and because I don't like the way they age the actors in cinema. They put grey hair on them and some grey makeup, so they look like dead zombies more than old people. Because old people are not zombies. No, it's a very stereotypal and stupid view. No, I don't feel like a grey-faced zombie. Maybe I am, but I don't feel like it. And so I don't think that. And she works on the cosmetic department, so she's a professional on beauty and things like that. She certainly won't have a grey hair or pallid grey skin. No. So that's a very difficult thing, because if you would have something, there are some kind of volcanic tapes, for example, that I don't know if you can use them on anyone's face, but I could imagine that there's some sort of plastic or the same kind of thing that dries up. If you put it on your face, it dries up and makes you kind of more wrinkled or different, without changing actually the color or anything else. I don't know, it's just an idea. But that's important, and then of course the way they dress. As a young woman, Bambi dresses like it's very funny. She's all kinds of little bow ties and colorful shirts and belts and necklaces and earrings, all kinds of stuff. And as an older woman, she's about the same. Not so many decorations, and they're more expensive, but she still decorates herself. Yes, and that's her that's her nature. It's a characteristic to him have. And William, on the other hand, does not. He doesn't fuss. His style is, but his academic his style is, and likes his tweeds and jumpers and such. And anyway, well, to be continued on the next sequence. I'm gonna get my coffee.